Good evening, people. Hope everybody's doing well. This is Aaron Banks, also known as Keep Firing LLC. And I wanted to run through some really basic information about how a round of ammunition, one loaded round of ammunition, is comprised. What are the major parts? Uh, a loaded round of ammunition is comprised of four major parts. You have taking example, once I hit one, kick it around, okay. Standard loaded round of ammunition, one round of ammunition, which is this is Mike 855. You have your standard FMJ as well as your jacketed hollow points. You can see the biggest difference is this has a cavity that allows for to aid in expansion. Uh, Taking that for what it's worth, what all goes into the creation of one round of ammunition? Well, let's start here. They all start with a projectile. These are the actual bullets that travel downrange. This is what you're pushing to make that nice hole in the X ring, 10 ring, or hit that steel that you're shooting at, right? All right, so we've gone over that. Bullets, projectiles. Moving down from that, you're getting into your brass. Your brass is what houses the projectile. The bullets are resting on the very, very ends of your brass pieces. That's where they live. And they're pressed in normally to keep them from falling out. Because if they fall out, then they would spill out what's called gunpowder. That's what I have in here. A little gunpowder. Now, that gunpowder is all resting on what you would see as once I get a hold of it so everybody can see it, a primer. Now, this is what one looks like when it's been dimpled or fired. That's a dimpled primer. I hope it shows up well enough, but the primer sits at the rear of the brass. Now, what the primer's job is to do is this. Once the primer is struck by a firing pin, the firing pin strikes the primers. The primer, inside of the primer, there's a priming compound that is crushed between the cap and the anvil. Once it does that, it pushes gases and flame because it's basically a small explosion that is created inside, or shall I say to the rear, well, inside the brass. Once that happens, it ignites the gunpowder and starts to create pressure that pushes the bullet down down and out of the barrel. That is what happens normally. So to kind of encapsulate it all, you have, there we go, bam. Inside of this barrel, this is not a live round. This is the primer's out of this one, but the bullets sit in the loaded round ammunition, sit into the barrel. The firing pin strikes the primer. The primer is ignited. The ignition creates a flash that ignites the gunpowder that is sitting inside of the actual brass casing. As that pressure builds, it begins to build and then push the bullet down the lands and grooves of the barrel, then out. So this is the portion that leaves the barrel and impacts your target, the dirt berm, the steel target you're shooting at, or if you're a hunter, you're hunting, the game, your quarry, whatever it may be, is what impacts it. Standard 115 FMJ, actually I stand corrected, this is a 124. 124 grain FMJ round, and this being for a AR-15 or AR style rifle, a 77 grain Sierra Match King. This is the portion that is the primer. Running through it again with a rifle. The firing pin strikes the primer. The primer ignites the gunpowder. The gunpowder builds pressure, then begins to push the projectile, the bullet, out of the brass. The bullet continues its travel down the barrel and out to the dirt berm, the steel, the target that you're shooting at, whatever it may be. The brass portion is what is ejected, normally out to your right and over your right shoulder. It's a pretty simplified method of explaining. So the primary reason to understand is a loaded round of ammunition is comprised of bullet. Turn that upside down. Bullet, brass, try to show this well enough. Primer. This is a still alive primer. I'm gonna put that one down. This is what one looks like normally when it's been fired. You see the dimple in it. And the gunpowder that is ignited inside of the brass, pushing the projectile, the bullet, downrange. I know that was relatively quick, but I hope it makes a little bit more sense in terms of how a bullet, a loaded round of ammunition, is comprised. And hope it answers some questions. If you all have any more questions, there are a lot of good resources out there. Hell, you can reach out to me and ask me. I have no problem answering any questions and trying to help anybody out. So hope that information matters, and stay safe and keep firing.